Hi, it's Tiffany Lorraine, the Resilient Mother, with another episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. In December, we're talking about mastering your own unique resilience, and I'm bringing you different people with different ideas and techniques that might be unique to them or your situation to become more resilient. Today, I have Cassie with me, and she's a cancer coach. Thank you for being here. Please tell us more about you.
I am a 3-time cancer survivor from acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and I was diagnosed in my early 30s. I was 31. And just as life was about to get, quote unquote, what we think easier, I was newly married. My career was taking off, and I was diagnosed with a disease I was not expecting. And the protocol for treatment that I went through is 18 months long, and you're immediately hospitalized for the quote unquote induction phase. Because the cancer that I had, they basically throw the kitchen sink at to try to cure. And 4 months into that, I had a stroke.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had to relearn how to walk and use my entire left side while still going through treatment because I wasn't in remission. And so 8 weeks
Holy
of
resilience.
yeah, 8 weeks of very intense physical therapy. I would say I regained 95% of my mobility
Nice.
back. Yeah, which is way, they don't really give you any expectations, but I think it's better than what they had hoped. And so fast forward to 18 months later, I am in remission, and they tell me I finished my last chemotherapy, and I'm like, okay, I can breathe again. And then 7 weeks later, I relapsed the first time.
Ooh.
And yeah, they were like, your body's not responding to chemotherapy. So do you want to try this immunotherapy, or do you want to go on a clinical trial? And I'm like, clinical trial? I'm like, we're there already? Like, kind of like a little shocked. And so I did the immunotherapy first because it was the less aggressive route. And it still didn't, I still had the opportunity to go on the clinical trial. It didn't take that option away. So I tried the immunotherapy, it failed. And then so I went on to do all the testing for the clinical trial. A week before I was supposed to start, it was shut down. So my husband and I at the time looked at our medical team and was like, okay, what's next? What are our options? And they told me that there was one other clinical trial going on in the States, and we couldn't get on it. It was full. There's no line skipping. And they're like, even if we got you on the list, it doesn't guarantee you qualify for the study.
Yeah.
And so I said, what do we do? And they're like, until something comes available, we're basically going to keep you alive with blood and platelets.
Oh, wow.
And I said, what? There's nothing. Like, there's nothing else. You're like, no, there's not right now. So like a month goes by, I'm still in the hospital. It's like day 50 something. And they finally come to me and they are like, so the Leukemia Lymphoma Society conference just ended for doctors, and there's this new immunotherapy that just came out. Do you want to try it? And they handed my husband and I at the time 2 pieces of paper of research, 114 participants, for an immunotherapy that was not for my cancer. And I was like, wait a minute, this isn't even for my cancer. You want me to try this? And the outcomes from that study were not good. Like, they were not positive. Like, the overarching results were not positive, in my opinion. Somebody else could look at that very differently. And I said, well, I guess. I'm like, I don't know. So after so much contemplation, I said, even if this doesn't help me, it might help someone else.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
let's try it. Because the goal was to get to stem cell transplant. So
Mm.
I went home from the hospital with a letter of compassion written to the FDA and the drug manufacturer just to get access to the drug, because it was not, I'm basically, it was my Hail Mary. It was my moonshot. It was like, yeah, we don't have anything. So like, this is what we do when people are on the trajectory of death. And like, we're just going to see what works.
Wow.
And they let me out. I had some really hard conversations with friends, family that I never thought I'd ever have to have. Because they basically said, settle your affairs.
Oof.
Because they didn't know if we would even get approved for the drug. And, I spent 2 months thinking I was going to die
Mm.
and going, this is it. Okay. I accepted it. I didn't fight it. I just was like, if this is meant to be, this is meant to be. And if this is how it goes, this is how it goes. And we got the call that it was approved. And we were like, oh my God, it's like a sigh of relief. And so then we're like, how many rounds? So we did 4 rounds of that to get to stem cell transplant. And I had my stem cell transplant. And I'm thinking, oh my God, we're finally done. We're over. 6 months after that, I relapsed again.
Ah.
No, like, not only have I heard what people think is their nightmare, I've heard it like 2 more times after that. And I said, oh my God, I cannot. I was not prepared for the news. I was physically, mentally not in a place to fight. And I was like, I don't think I can do this again. Like, I seriously contemplated moving forward with any type of treatment.
Mm.
I was not in a place to fight. I couldn't. I was like, already the gas tank was empty. And I cried, I don't know how long. And the first thought that popped into my head was, your dad would be so disappointed in you if you got
Mm.
this far and didn't keep going. And I was like, oh,
Um,
freaking dad, you know, like, of all the people, like, of course, right?
mhm.
And so I made a deal in my mind of like, this is it though. I'm done. Like, I can't keep fighting this disease. And it had already been like 5 years at that point. And I couldn't do it. I just didn't have it in me. And I looked up at my husband and I said, okay, I can do this one more time, but that's it. He goes, okay, whatever you decide is what we're going to do. And so we looked at our medical team and I said, well, what are we doing? I said, are we doing a stem cell transplant, immunotherapy? What are we doing? They're like, we're going to do immunotherapy then, because we have to get you to remission in order to even have another stem cell transplant. So I was like, okay. So we did 4 more rounds and I got into remission, and we were like, okay, another stem cell transplant. And they're like, no, we're just going to wait. And I was like, what? They're like, we're just going to wait and see what happens. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable with that.
Right?
But at the same time, like, I don't want to go through another stem cell transplant because it's so hard. It's like having an organ transplant.
Mm.
And I was like, it's so hard on the body that I was like, oh, okay. And we waited. And finally, like, after 6 months, I was like, do you think I'm okay? Because I didn't
Right?
even know.
No.
And I had been going back to the doctor religiously for every week, blood work, appointments, everything for 6 months straight, because we just didn't know. I was in a precarious position where most people who relapse once don't survive.
Yeah.
So the fact that I've relapsed again and I'm still living, I'm a statistical anomaly, to say the least.
A walking miracle.
Yeah. And they were like, we think so. I was like, okay, great. How do you do that? And they're like, we don't know. We just kill cancer. That's all we do. So I'm sitting there going like, what do you mean you don't know? Like, there's no support afterward. Like, there's no, like, during your journey, there's so much support. People are throwing things at you left and right to help you. And then you get done and they're like, oh, yeah, we're done. See you later. And I'm like, I don't know how to live life again. Like,
5 years.
legitimately,
Yeah.
all I was doing was surviving and trying not to die for 5 years. Like, how do you pick up the pieces of your life?
Mm.
And I genuinely contemplated, like, my life is never going to be the same.
Mm.
How do I figure out what this is like? Because every survivor that I had met during the 5-year journey was like, you're going to be fine. Like, don't worry about it. Everything gets better when you hear those words, you're in remission, or your NED, no evidence of disease, and life gets to be good again. No one told me about the crippling fear that I was experiencing, the
Mm.
overwhelm, the uh, anger, the confusion, all of those emotions that come with it.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, something's got to be wrong with me then.
Mm.
Right? Like, I must be broken because everyone else seems to have figured this out, and I'm like spinning my wheels and overwhelmed with everything.
Mm.
And so, as a byproduct of that experience of basically like hitting an emotional mental rock bottom, like, I came home from work one day, I threw my bag on the floor and I just started sobbing in front of my husband. I fell to the kitchen floor and he goes, "What happened at work? What happened?" Like, genuinely thinking it was something to do with her. I was like, "Nothing to do with work." I go, "I don't know what's going on, but I am not okay. I'm not
Mm.
okay." And he goes, "Oh," like, he doesn't know what to do. This came out of nowhere to him. And he ended up calling my dad and his mom to come over. And I'm sobbing, laying on a couch in front of my dad. And he goes, "It's going to be okay." And I'm like mortified. I'm
Mm.
embarrassed because I'm like, I went through treatment. I went through 5 years of like not skipping a beat, going through it, breezing through it. And I am crumbling at the opportunity to live life.
Mm.
I can't handle like everyday living again. So I was like, in that moment of me laying face down, sobbing in a pillow in front of my dad, I was like, in my mind, I was like, I've got to figure this out. I go,
Mm.
this isn't what you fought really hard for. There's got to be a better way. Do the work to figure it out. So I did. Thankfully, I went to work the next day, even though everyone was like, please don't go to work. And I shouldn't have gone to work. But I didn't actually I don't think I did an ounce of work that day. I just started putting together of like, what do I need to do? Like, I need to figure this out. I started Googling, started to like put together this imperfect plan. And, I ended up getting a yoga certificate. I went on a healing retreat. I went on my own, I would like to call it my own spiritual journey to figure out my new normal.
Yeah.
And
I can in so many ways, but not as life-threatening. I think there's someone out here that really needs to hear this, that I think there's so much bravery in your story, not only the bravery of 5 years of cancer, but then just the bravery to admit, I'm not okay. It's
yeah,
really hard for some of us to admit that I am just not okay. It takes a level of honesty with ourselves and a vulnerability to embrace our humanity in that moment and then start taking the steps like you're talking about of okay, I've admitted where I'm at. Now, where do I go from here? And
right.
I love that you reached out to someone too and realized you weren't going to be able to do it alone. And I think some of us try to be lone wolves and get through it alone, but it takes support. It does take a village in a lot of way, and you had that during the cancer, and then all of a sudden, hands off. Okay, figure it out. That's can be jarring. It can be jarring in your life, whether you're stepping away from abuse, whether you've survived cancer, whether you're dealing with a mental illness or a child with a mental illness or a death in the family. We all have these kind of shocks in our life where, you know what, if you're not okay, you're not okay. And I think resilience is being brave enough to admit that and figure out what's going to take to bounce back. And so I'm curious to hear what happened after this spiritual journey that you went on.
So I was very angry. I'm 35 now. So much was taken away from me, in my opinion, back then, right? Like I didn't see the gifts it was giving me. I just was like, you're taking. You took 5 years, you took the ability to be a mother, my career, my everything, right? Like I was very angry. And I was really angry at our traditional medical system for not setting us up to succeed afterward.
Mm.
Like their job, I get it, their job is to kill cancer, and they did that. But I was really angry that the support and the things that we needed to survive weren't there to get back to living life. And I had gone to a survivorship meeting through one of the local charities. And the woman who spoke, she gave this wonderful presentation, but this man stood up afterward and he was clearly very angry. And he goes, "This is great information, but how the F does this help me?" And I was like, oh my God, he said what everyone was thinking, but didn't say it out loud.
Right?
Right? Including myself. Because it was from a perspective, and they mean well, practitioners who think this is what we need, but what we need she missed the mark completely.
Mm-hmm.
And so through that experience, I was like, I'm going to create something to help others because there's a way through this, past this. And it doesn't have to feel like there's no option other than to white knuckle and say I'm okay, but I'm not okay through the rest of your life that you fought really hard to be here for.
Oh, 100%. I can relate in a different way as just to give somebody perspective on this, as I was a birth mom and I was applauded for that. And then support was dropped after that. And the grief and the loss, just like you're talking about, like, I'm sorry, it's I don't even know if I have the right word, but like losing those years with the cancer or losing the opportunity to raise a child, like those go against every natural instinct in our life. It goes against everything we were set up to believe, that you follow this path and your life will be great. And when something completely obliterates that, and people are just like, oh, you're fine. You're fine now. Like you're now in an acceptable place. Like you should be able to build from here. You're fine. It's over. It's never really over. That loss for me is never really over. Your loss is never really over. And as much as we get better at coping with it, there's still pain attached to it. There's still grief and there's still loss attached with that. And when you brought up the anger, I'm like, oh yeah. That's the grief process. That anger and the not being okay. But I love so much of what you're sharing, because I think more people need to hear this and to understand that if you don't see the support that you want, go create it. Go do some work, because you have a depth and an understanding of the situation that no one else is going to have. Mm-hmm. You just are. And there's a reason that you went through that mess, because now you have a message and you have someone waiting for you to show up and be that person that makes a difference. And I just applaud you for that. And I love people who take their pain and put purpose to it and realize that there's a reason I experienced that. And even if I have to create the reason for that, I'm going to do it. And that's what this podcast is about as well, is supporting people, mothers, families, those that have struggled and needed a way to become resilient. We need more of that today, because we're facing so many different challenges today, and we may be more connected than ever, but we're more disconnected than ever. And we need that connection. We need our humanity. We cannot lose our humanity, I can talk. We cannot lose our humanity to our technology. We cannot lose our technology to our advancements. We cannot lose our humanity in judgment and social media and fast pace and saying we will help and then not actually helping, which is what sounds like that meeting was. It's like, we have this idea. This is what's going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Then not realizing they haven't done the work to really see what will help. And so I'm curious, along the way and through your journey, what was helpful? What were things people did that actually contributed and added value to you? Because I think anyone that hears cancer or hears grief or hears pain, it's not that they don't want to help. I think it's that they don't have the right perspective or they don't know how to ask. And so can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes. So what's helpful is just to hold space for us, treat us as normally as possible. Like, we didn't sign up for this, but we also don't want to be handled with kid gloves all the time because of it. And we're still humans, and we still have feelings, and allow us to have a bad day, allow us to not feel good, allow us to not be okay, because that's the thing, like, people are very uncomfortable with people not being okay.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it then makes us feel like we cannot tell the truth of what our experience is, and it's almost like you gaslight yourself because of that.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how many times I said, like, yeah, I'm okay, when I was not in any form or fashion okay. And the moment I admitted I wasn't okay, it felt like this tremendous amount of pressure was alleviated, because everyone kept saying, "You're so strong." And it's like, I did not feel strong coming out of it. I did not feel like I had just beaten cancer. I felt like I was just defeated by it mentally and emotionally. And, the best thing you can do is just hold space for someone. Tell them, I'm here for you and whatever you need. And just don't ghost us, because that happens a lot.
Well, and I think too, unfortunately, I've heard things like, well, if you had more faith, or if you did this, or if you did that, like, well-meaning, but everyone's journey is different. Everyone's healing process is different. And if you're not taking the time to understand that unique individual's needs, you're missing the point. It's great if you want to help, but you're not actually helping if you don't find out what that unique individual needs to feel okay or to feel safe, and don't deny them what they ask for either. Don't tell them what they need is too much, that they're asking too much, as if they're going to become codependent on you through a healing process that they need to go through. They just admitted to you they're not okay. Hello, that takes a lot of bravery. And then to have your need said and being told, oh, you're asking too much. Be honest. Just say, I'm not comfortable with that. Let me find somebody who is. Or let me understand this better, why you feel you need that, instead of brushing it aside. And I get we don't want to create people that are codependent. I get we don't want to create people that are dependent on a system or on somebody else. You do need your independence, but that doesn't mean that you should be left alone to grieve, to heal, or be told that what you need is not what you need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what you need, and maybe you don't understand it because of their trauma or what they've gone through or what works for them or what would help them. And so honor that, or create the opportunity for it. And sometimes you can be like, I'm not a therapist, I can't help with that, or this makes me uncomfortable. Just admit that, and then that lets us know that, okay, you can't meet that need for me. Thank you for your support. At least you made the effort to get to know me at a deeper level. Like, we can give you space to still be helpful where you can be helpful. And it might be at a lesser level than someone else, or it might be, somebody. Like, I don't think anyone crosses our path without a reason. I think we're meant to cross paths, that we do. And, sometimes I think we're the lesson for other people, sadly. We get to be the one that teaches them something sometimes, but understanding that also helps yourself, like, have more compassion as well, and just go, okay, they've never experienced this before. They're processing, they're human as well. And if we can embrace that humanity in each other, I think that creates more of a win-win for everyone, because then we're both giving to each other and we're supporting and uplifting each other in the best ways that we can. But shutting people off, isolating them, technology and COVID made it the worst. We dehumanized people we didn't see, we didn't have to talk to, or we could talk bad about and walk away and not see the effects of the words that we said, or not see the effects of our lack of helping out because we didn't want to dig deeper because it made us uncomfortable, or we worried about how it would make us look. It's so shallow. There's so much more depth to who we are as people and what we go through. And if we walk away from that depth of humanity, we're going to lose our humanity.
Right. 100%. And, please stop telling us about your aunt and uncle who had cancer and died. That is 100% not helpful for us.
No.
Please stop saying things like that. Like, if anything, please just recognize our journey and stop saying that, oh, I had so-and-so and they died or whatever. Like, everyone's journey is individual, and we do need stories of hope and inspiration, but we don't need to hear about other people dying. It's not helpful.
No. And great, you want to honor them and their great. You want to honor them in your death, but like someone who survived it, like, yes, we're grateful. We're grateful to be alive, but death is something that comes to people when it's their time. Right. And if you've survived cancer, if you've survived like a death-defying experience, you don't need reminded of your mortality motivation. You've lived it. You don't need someone to remind you of it. So.
I would agree. And, advocate for yourself for the resources that you do need, or offer, say, hey, I don't know what you're experiencing. I don't know what you need in this moment. What do you need? Yeah. And we might not know at that time, but that is a better conversation than nothing.
Yeah. Or I'll help you, walk away, don't actually follow through. I think that's even worse, because like, oh, you feel better now, but you didn't actually do anything. So thanks for the well-being, but contribution would be nice. So please tell me about the work that you do now and who you work with.
Yeah, so I put together programs, a 13-week survivorship program called The Happier, Healthier You. It is group coaching because there's so much power in community and connection and in healing in and of itself. I work with men and women one-on-one, and I also offer small workshops and live trainings to tailored to individual issues that we as survivors, fighters and survivors deal with, like fear and anxiety, and just like physical recovery and neuropathy and things like that, that are universal to anyone who has walked this path. And it is truly my joy and my passion to be able to give back to my community that I think is so underserved in so many ways.
Yeah, I love that so much. And there's so many that need it. And you just gave the perfect example with your story of why it's needed. Where can they find you if they want to work with you? Where's the best place?
I am on Instagram at The Happier Hustle and also on Facebook. So those are the best places to find me. You can always reach out and say hello. I love hearing other people's journeys and just being a part of this community.
Thank you so much. I love this conversation. I thank you for being here, listeners, and we'll see you at the next episode, as there's a series here in December. Please stay tuned for more unique stories on mastering your own unique resilience.